Let me tell you something. Nobody warns you about getting old. They warn you about the knees. They warn you about the pills, the doctor's visits, the way your body starts sending you bills for every year you lived hard. But nobody, not one person, warns you about what happens to your heart. Not the muscle, the other one. With the one that still wants things, even when everybody around you has decided you're too old to want anything at all. I found that out the hard way, at 71 years old, standing in my own kitchen, when my daughter looked me dead in the eye and said 4 words I will never forget. "Mom, this is embarrassing." Now here's the thing. I raised that girl. I sat up nights with fevers and bad dreams. I worked 2 jobs so she could go to college, and never once asked me for a dollar I didn't have. And here she was, 42 years old herself, telling me, a grown woman who had buried a husband, buried friends, and served this country before she was even a thought in anybody's mind, that falling in love was something I should be ashamed of. I want you to sit with that for a second. Because before this is over, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. I'm going to tell you about a man named Raymond, about a bench outside a grocery store, about a phone call that nearly ended everything before it started, and about the night my own son asked me if I'd lost my mind. But I'm not going to rush there, because if you're watching this, and I have a feeling some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, you deserve the whole story, not just the highlight reel. So let me start at the beginning. Let me tell you who I am. I won't take up much of your time with my resume. I served my country for a good stretch of my younger years, and I'll tell you, it taught me one thing that's followed me every day since. You don't get to choose what happens to you. You only get to choose what you do next. I came home, I married, I built a life the slow way, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. My husband Walter and I had 41 years together before the cancer took him. I have 2 children. I have 4 grandchildren who used to run to me at the door and now mostly text. And at 71 years old, I thought my story, the romantic part of it anyway, was closed, filed away, finished. I was wrong. And here's how I found that out. After Walter passed, I did what a lot of you probably did, or are doing right now. I kept the house the same. His coat stayed on the hook by the door for almost 2 years. I set 2 coffee cups out of habit, more mornings than I want to admit, before I caught myself and put one back. Here's the thing about grief that nobody tells you. It doesn't leave. It just learns to sit quietly in the corner of the room while you go on living. And I had made peace with that. I told myself, this is the last chapter now. You raised your children, you loved your husband, you served your time. The rest is just waiting. I want you to really hear that sentence, because I think a lot of folks watching this have said some version of it to themselves. The rest is just waiting. That is one of the most dangerous lies we tell ourselves in old age. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like acceptance. But really, it's a door we close on our own future, and then we act surprised when nothing good walks through it. Every Tuesday, I went to the grocery store at 9 in the morning, right when it opened, because the aisles were empty and I didn't like the crowds anymore. My hearing isn't what it used to be, and all that noise wears a woman down. There's a bench right outside the entrance, in the shade of an awning, where I used to sit for a few minutes before going in, just watching the world move. That's where I met Raymond. He was sitting on the same bench, one Tuesday, with a small bag of groceries already at his feet, and a paperback book in his lap that he wasn't really reading. I noticed that first, the way he'd turn a page every few minutes without his eyes actually moving across it. I know that look. That's not a man reading a book. That's a man using a book as a shield. I almost didn't say anything. Understand, at 71, striking up conversation with a stranger doesn't come as easy as it did at 25. You've got pride built up like scar tissue. You've got fear of looking foolish. But something made me ask him what he was reading. He looked up, and I'll tell you, there are moments in life that split time into a before and an after, and I didn't know it yet. but that was one of them, and he said, "Honestly, I have no idea. I've been on the same page for 20 minutes. We both laughed, and that was it. That was the whole beginning. No fireworks, no violins, just two old people, both a little lonely, both pretending to be fine, laughing at a grocery store bench on a Tuesday morning. His wife had passed 4 years before mine, before Walter, I mean. Different kind of loss. Hers had been sudden, a heart attack in the garage while she was fixing a lawnmower. Mine had been slow, watching someone fade a little more every week, until there was nothing left to hold on to but memory. Different roads, same destination. That particular kind of quiet a house gets when it used to have 2 people in it and now only has 1. We started sitting on that bench together every Tuesday, just talking. About nothing, really. His grandkids, my grandkids, a television show we both used to watch with our spouses and hadn't been able to bring ourselves to finish alone. Little things. But here's what I want you to understand, because this is the part people my age forget. Little things, repeated, are how a whole life gets built. Nobody falls in love in a single dramatic moment. They fall in love one Tuesday at a time, until one day they look up and realize the ordinary has become essential. It took about 4 months before I let myself say the word, even in my own head. Love. At 71. It felt almost embarrassing to think it, like trying on a young woman's dress that doesn't fit anymore. There was a night. This is the moment I mentioned, the one I wasn't going to give away too early, when Raymond called me at 11 o'clock, which was strange, because he was a man who went to bed at 9 sharp, no exceptions. His voice was shaking. He'd fallen in his kitchen, reaching for a can on a high shelf. Nothing broken, thank God. But he was scared, and he was alone, and the first person he thought to call wasn't his son. It was me. I got dressed faster than I have in 20 years and drove over in the dark. And I remember standing in his kitchen at midnight, holding a bag of frozen peas to his elbow, and thinking, I have not felt this necessary to another human being in 3 years. Not needed for a chore, not needed for a bill to be paid, needed the way people are supposed to need each other. Somebody's first phone call. That's when I understood what was happening to me. Here's a metaphor I want you to hold on to, because I think it explains something a lot of families get wrong. Love, later in life, isn't a wildfire. Nobody our age is looking to burn the house down. It's more like a wood stove in winter, quieter, steadier, but it will keep you alive through a season you didn't think you'd survive alone. I didn't tell my children right away, not because I was ashamed, because, and this is something I want every parent watching this to really hear, I knew, somewhere in my gut, that they weren't going to see the wood stove. They were going to see the fire, and they were going to reach for the extinguisher before they even asked what was burning. I told my daughter first, over Sunday dinner, the way I'd have told her about anything else important. I said, I've met someone. His name's Raymond. I'd like you to meet him. The silence that followed was longer than any silence I experienced in my years of service, and that is saying something. She put her fork down. She said, Mom, are you serious right now? I said I was, and that's when she said it. This is embarrassing. Not I'm worried about you. Not, are you sure this is healthy? Embarrassing. Like I was a teenager who'd gotten a tattoo she didn't approve of, instead of a grown woman who had earned, through 71 hard years and 1 long marriage and 1 hard loss, the right to decide what she did with whatever time she had left. My son was worse, in his own way, because he tried to dress his fear up as concern. He sat me down like I was the child in the room, and started asking about his intentions, whether I'd updated my will, whether I understood that men like that sometimes target widows, as if the man who called me at midnight because he was scared and alone was some kind of con artist, casing my modest 3-bedroom house and my government pension. Here's the truth I've come to, and I say this gently, because I know some of you watching this are the children in this story, not the parents, and I don't want you to feel attacked. I want you to feel informed. When adult children panic about a parent finding love again, it is almost never really about protecting the parent. It's about grief they haven't processed themselves. Watching me love someone new felt, to my son and daughter, like watching their father get erased. Like I was closing a door on Walter by opening one on Raymond. And I understand that fear. I do. But fear dressed up as protection is still fear, and it does just as much damage. I want to give you a picture that might help this land, if you're a son or daughter watching who's felt this exact thing. Grief is not a pie. Love for a new person does not take a slice away from the love you had for the one who's gone. Grief is more like a room in a house you never stop owning. You can walk into it any time, sit with it, keep it exactly as it was. Falling in love again doesn't tear that room down. It just means you built another room next to it, because the house of your heart, it turns out, has more space in it than you ever gave it credit for. My children didn't see it that way, not at first. My daughter stopped calling as often. My son made a comment at Thanksgiving in front of the grandkids that I'm not going to repeat here, because it isn't fair to him to put his worst moment on display forever, but it cut deep, deeper than anything since Walter's funeral. There was a stretch, about 6 weeks, where I genuinely considered ending things with Raymond. Not because I stopped loving him, because I was tired. 71 years old, and I still couldn't escape the old fear every child eventually plants in a parent without meaning to, the fear of disappointing your own kids. I remember sitting in my car outside Raymond's house one evening, engine off, hands still on the wheel, having one of those conversations you have with yourself that nobody else ever hears. I thought about all the years I spent making sure my children had what they needed. I thought about the sacrifices, the second job, the missed birthdays because of duty, the years Walter and I scraped by so those kids could have a future we never had. And here I was, at the very end of my own road, being told by the people I built that future for that I didn't deserve one more chapter of my own. I'll be honest with you, I cried in that car. A grown woman, a woman who served her country, who buried her husband with dry eyes at the funeral because somebody had to be strong for the grandkids, cried alone in a parked car outside a man's house because her own children couldn't give her permission to be happy. And here is the moment that changed everything, the moment I think about more than almost any other in these last few years. Raymond came outside. He'd seen my car sitting there for 20 minutes and gotten worried. And he got in the passenger seat, and he didn't ask me what was wrong. He just sat with me, quiet. After a while, he said something I will carry with me until the day I die. He said, "You don't owe anyone the rest of your life, just because you already gave them the beginning of it." I sat with that sentence a long time. Because here's the hard truth underneath it, the one I want to leave with every person my age watching this video. Our children's approval is not a permission slip we need to keep living. We spend so many decades being someone's parent that we forget we're also still allowed to be someone's person. I didn't end things with Raymond. Instead, I did something harder. I called my daughter and I told her the truth, plainly, the way I should have from the start. I told her I loved her father my whole life, and that love hadn't gone anywhere. It never would. I told her that loving Raymond didn't erase a single day I had with Walter, didn't erase one photograph, one memory, one grave I still visit every Sunday before church. I told her that watching me build something new wasn't a betrayal of the family she grew up in. It was proof that the family she grew up in had taught me how to love well enough to do it twice. And then I told her something that I think finally broke through. I said, one day, if you're lucky, you're going to be 71 years old too. And I hope more than anything that when that day comes, your own children give you room to still be a whole person and not just somebody's grandmother sitting quietly in a chair, waiting to be finished. She was quiet on the phone for a long moment. Then she said, "I didn't think about it like that. That's usually how these things turn, if they turn at all. Not with a dramatic reconciliation, not with a movie ending, but with one honest conversation that finally lands the way all the others didn't." It's been 2 years now. My son still isn't fully at ease with it, if I'm honest with you. Some doors take longer to open than others, and I've made peace with that too. But my daughter met Raymond last spring. They talked for almost 2 hours in my kitchen while I sat on the porch, giving them space. And when Raymond left, my daughter hugged me at the door and said, "He makes you laugh the way you used to laugh with Dad. I forgot you used to laugh like that." That's when I knew we were going to be all right. So here's what I want to leave you with, if you've sat with me this whole time. If you are older, like me, and you've found something, someone, who makes the second half of your life feel worth showing up for, do not let anybody, not even the children you raised with your own 2 hands, convince you that your heart came with an expiration date. You earned this chapter. Every hard year, every sacrifice, every night you stayed up worrying about somebody else's future, you earned the right to a little happiness in your own. And if you're one of the sons or daughters watching this, and some part of you recognized yourself in my daughter, in my son, I'm not angry with you. None of us are born knowing how to watch our parents change. But I'll ask you the same thing Raymond asked me that night in the car. Ask yourself honestly, is your worry about protecting them, or is it about a grief of your own you haven't found the words for yet? Because your parent does not owe you the rest of their life sitting still in a chair, waiting. Here's the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you go. Love, at any age, isn't foolish. Foolish is spending the years you have left convincing yourself you don't deserve them. I'm 73 now. Raymond and I have breakfast every morning, at his place or mine. We still sit on that bench outside the grocery store some Tuesdays, out of habit, and out of love for how it all started. And when people ask me if I have any regrets about starting something new so late in life, I tell them the truth. My only regret is that it took me so long to believe I still deserved it. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of your own bench, your own Raymond, your own hard conversation you still need to have with somebody you love, do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Take care of yourselves, and don't let anybody talk you out of your own happiness.